You know, you've touched on so many issues now.
Yes, I'm so sorry.
No. We're looking at all the ministries.
Yes.
You've looked at Greek, you've talked about road and so many other issues. But I want to go back to the issue of agriculture.
Yes.
Let's talk about agriculture, knowing full well that we are a mono economy till this moment. Now, you talked about the glory days of the past, how well we can return that, and also talked about some of the gains that the last administration got in terms of agriculture. For Minister Audu Ogbe coming into that particular ministry, there must be a kind of plan of action that someone like you also has some form of idea in the agricultural sector would want to see him implement, to the extent that it will harness the potential fully of every region of the country. What would be a ready example of projects you would like to see him undertake?
Like, for example, starting from his home state, in Benue State. Do you know that when you move around in Benue State, sometimes in some of those farms, you see orange just dropping. Nobody is making use of them because there are too many. How can we now assess this particular state in terms of yam productions, in terms of oranges, pineapple, and other things that we use? We are heavy users and we drink a lot of juice and all. We need to find industry that can be tailored to this particular plantations. Then we look at other part of the country. Like, for example, in the north, some of the areas where you produce guinea maize and beans and all, and then especially rice. The Abakaliki rice, for example. Some even say it's more nutritious than the foreign rice that we're taking. So why can't we use those? One of the former ministers is having a factory in Benue State where it processes rice and all. Most of our intakes, the normal intakes that we have in terms of livestock and all, should be revisited so that we can be consumers of our own product before we export.
Sorry, allow me come in here. Yeah. If you talk about oranges dropping from their trees.
Let me make an example.
For example, oranges dropping from their trees. Maybe we also have tomato farms and some of all those things. These, we're talking about the perishable ones.
Yes.
Can we also, and you're talking about how best we can preserve them, can you also link this to another ministry, that is power?
Yes, of course. For example, let me make this clear. Having worked as a civil servant, I can tell you that each of those particular ministries can bring in half of the budget that they make in a year. Each of them. Because they have parastatals under them that they can harness money, so that most of the money that will appropriate in terms of budgetary allocation will be like as if, okay, they have made half of it, and then half of it is coming from the other federation so that they can take care of other things. I'm just giving an example. Very truly. Like, for example, those particular areas that you mentioned as regard to power and all. Your guest has already mentioned that some of them have been privatized now. But the key issue is that how well can they get to the people? The distribution of those particular power. How well and effectively and at what cost? For now, the ministries and all of those people do not have any timeline. I once asked Lai Mohammed in a program, in a debate, I asked him that, can you, as a political party or a government seeking, a party seeking for government, can you give us a time lag for all of these particular things that you want to do for the people? As it's where now, we don't have any time lag. We don't.
But they elected for 4 years.
Yes, of course, for 4 years, so they can move. But to make it more effective, you tax yourself. You give yourself a tax, not like in the private sector. You give a tax to everybody, especially to bring in. So even if he brings half of it, it could be passed. You understand? So that way we'll engage and make the people work. For example, if each of the ministry want to make an internal revenue for each of the ministries, they can encourage the staffs. As it is now, most of the staffs are really, really not encouraged financially.
In the ministry?
Yes, most of them are not charged. Because the salary is not enough to take care of even their own domestic needs.
So we'll go back to the minimum wage and salary.
Yes, it doesn't take care of the minimum wage. But you see, in a private sector, like for example, in the bank, for example, you pay somebody good money so that he can be comfortable, so that he can bring in more. So when you encourage the civil servant, making sure that their livelihood, their housing, their feedings, and everything is taken care of, you will see the best in them. They will come to office on time. They will even help you in generating money. So each of those particular ministries they can make that half of that particular money. So in power sector, in housing, for example, look at the housing that you're talking about. In the mortgage facilities, which is being practiced by developed countries, most people own homes. Yes, sorry.
I was just, observing your optimism, and you seem very passionate about what it is that you expect the ministers to get to work to do. And you've anchored it on justice, equity, and you say fairness,
yes.
you said. But I'm just wondering, though, when you look at this list generally, the list of ministers, the portfolios they were assigned, you did observe that Nigerians had already speculated as to who will go where. Were you surprised?
Well, I was surprised in a way, thinking that probably some of the ministries and all would have been to some areas and all. But then, at the same time, there's no...
For instance?
Well, I was thinking really in terms of Amechi being Minister of Transport and all. I was expecting probably he would have been given maybe some part of what Fashola is being given. Because why I said so, the two of them are workaholic. They work very hard. Fashola, from the part of what he has done so far in Lagos, must have encouraged Mr. President to say, okay, let's do this. But when you look at power, housing, and then works, they are huge. Although he now even have 2 permanent secretaries to work with. So that is a heavy workload on him. Even though he has 2 ministers, another minister working on them. So he will be highly scrutinized. I want to believe that this particular government is anchored around former governor of Lagos State. But if you have given some part of it probably to Amechi, it will have helped in reducing, both of them could have helped in reducing the workload, as it were.
You're also a politician.
Yes, I am.
Do you see politics playing out in this list?
Well, a little bit of it being played, definitely. You can't run away from it. And then Mr. President is trying to play to the gallery of his political party, at the same time trying to do what he believes he can do as regard to having technocrat and all of them. But as it's where now, some even members of the political side would expect more. For me, I would have expected also an all-inclusive government. Why I said so is because...
An all-inclusive government?
Yes, all-inclusive government, including all political parties. Yes, you may take me on this. My take in multi-democratic system is this. You see, when everybody is involved, everybody tries to protect that unity. But once
it erodes competition, doesn't it?
Competition can come when you are about to go into election. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. So, but then the best of Nigerians, because when the politics time is over, it's now time for governance. We now put our best hands. You can get best hands in different political parties, and they can help in performance, and then they will help in stabilizing the country.
What do you think happened when the president has said, well, maybe not all the ministers will have portfolios, but eventually?
Well, I was disturbed. I was disturbed, and then I said it was a recipe for problem, because already, just like as I said, I'm basing on this unity, equity, and justice. Because people, everything you do, even how Mr. President eats, can be politicized. You said it here. While he was just signing his document and taking over, some people are saying, what is this man waiting for? Get to work. So he on his own, everything he does will be scrutinized, how he talks, what he says, how he eats, and all. So in this situation now where Nigerians are always feeling that probably some certain sector are domineering, or certain people are feeling as if it will be very, very difficult and put a lot of problem for him to say some people are not giving portfolio, they just sit down and be Mr. Talker. No, but I'm glad that they've already found another ingenuity into it by giving some Minister of State, and then everybody is on.
How important do you think states are? Because there's only so much that the ministers and the federal government can do.
No, the states are very, very important in this thing. The same thing I'm already suggesting for each of the ministry can go to the states. You know, most of our states just sit back and wait for this particular sharing formula that come from the federal. But the question is that each of these particular states can make an input back to the budgetary allocation. How well have they looked at their own internal generation, except for few who are in Lagos, for example, and then cannot learn from Lagos and all, and then Edo and all. Many of them do not have a standard benchmark that this is what I'm going to contribute to the center. And that makes you independent and makes you solid to speak. And then create opportunity for everybody in each of the local governments.
Sorry, Chamberlain, talking about politics, which Mark asked.